The Rites Encyclopedia by C. V. Brony. A collection of silly, bite-sized skits where the characters crush the fourth wall into dust to talk about the world of Rites of Ascension, all while poking fun at each other. Learn more about the Ascension process, cord weaponry, and more. This is a non-canon Rites Expanded Universe story. The characters break the fourth wall completely, so of course it has to be non-canon. Art by my lovely and amazingly talented wife, Violet Squiggles. You do have to have read Rites of Ascension to really understand this one. You're going to be seriously lost if you start here. That being said, you do not need to read this story to understand what's going on in Rites. This is to add to something already whole, and maybe get a few laughs, not make up for shortcomings elsewhere. Also, I thought it would be fun. Also, as this is non-canon to Rites, I can go back and change things if I like. Generally, this will only happen if something that hasn't been explained in canon stories yet happens that has to change this. Hopefully, I won't ever actually have to go do that, but if I do, I'll point it out in the chapter. Chapter 1. Ascension Summits. Twilight Sparkle stood up as the lights turned on, pushing up against the floor and smiling in front of the camera. In front of her was a large blackboard, and she had chalk and a pointer on hoof. More important, however, were her eyes, her shimmering, eager, and supremely excited eyes. Oh yes, tonight she was going to lecture. Hello every pony, or should I say everybody. My name is Twilight Sparkle, and I'm here to help expand and explain the world that is Rites of Ascension. A piece of chalk floated into the air, ready to write. Today, we're going to be talking about the transition from unicorn to alicorn. The chalk drew 2 vertical lines on the board, creating 3 different spaces. Over the one on the left, she wrote the word unicorn. First, though, we should cover some basic terminology. As we all know, I am... She paused, swallowing. Becoming an alicorn, though it's still hard to believe at this point. However, calling myself an alicorn right now isn't entirely accurate. I do have some Pegasus and Earth Pony magic, true, but it's not as precise as the actual term, since I don't have wings or an ethereal mane. I'm actually very far away from being a true alicorn. So, we have a different phrase to describe what I am. Alicorn Ascendant. This applies to any pony that has begun the transition to alicornhood, but has not yet become a full alicorn. The chalk wrote the term above the second space as she talked. Unicorns slowly transition to their prime age and immediately lose their childbearing or siring abilities when they become alicorn ascendants. Since I was still in my prime anyway, I skipped the first part of that. Lastly, the chalk spelled out alicorn over the third space. Alicorn ascendants don't become true, full alicorns until we do what Celestia calls dominating our summits. Each summit is a physical aspect of alicornhood: ethereal mane, wings, height, and horn length. We don't become true alicorns until we've dominated all 4, and there's no way to know what order they'll happen in until they come. There's not even a way to know how fast it'll happen. I haven't dominated any summits yet, so visually I look like any other short, bookish unicorn. Well, one with a royal torque, anyway. And because of that, I thought it would be nice to get pictures as I ascend, so I can look back and see the transition over time. But to really do that, I need a reference to compare against. Fortunately, I have a volunteer just for that. Shining, you can come in now. Shining Armor strode in, wearing his Royal Guard armor and carrying a studio camera on a tripod in his magic. Hey, Twily. Did you just want the camera over there? Yes, right in front of us. Shining set up the camera, took a place next to his sister, and put his foreleg around her in a little hug. Twilight giggled a bit. Come on, BBBFF. I know you're excited that I'm back in Canterlot for a while, but I need us both to sit up straight for this, okay? Alright, I get it, he said with a smile, backing off and lifting his head as far as he could. The two looked fairly different for being in the same family. Shining was quite a tall stallion, with a large frame that was perfect for carrying his heavy armor. His long muzzle was a prototypical example of what the nobility considered something from proper breeding, despite not being in nobility by birth. Twilight, however, was markedly shorter, even when sitting up straight for the picture. She was the shortest of her tight group of friends, about the same height as Rainbow Dash. Her frame was the opposite of Shining's. While his was large and strong, almost like an earth pony, hers was petite and compact. One might even say it was delicate looking. A pony that clearly spent her time indoors, and in this case, buried in studies and scrolls. The trigger for the camera was pressed down by Shining's magic, sealing the moment of time in a picture. One more was taken with them standing, and the contrast was much the same, possibly even more stark. Thanks for the help, Shiny. She gave him a little hug back. Any time, Twily. Happy to help. Though, what exactly are you doing here? Twilight tilted her head. Didn't you read the story description? Shining blinked. Story description? You know, the thing that describes what we're doing here? Helping explain the world of Rites of Ascension? Rites of Ascension? The story that we're in? He blinked again. Are you feeling alright, Twilight? She stomped her hoof. Feeling alright? Yes! I'm just angry that you didn't read the story description. I have a lot of people to educate out there. People? Twilight reached up, grabbed his head, and turned it towards the fourth wall. What? He squeaked. All those people, humans, reading about our adventures. They're our audience. We're the characters. His left eye, and only his left eye, started to drift up and to the right. Twilight face hooved. He hasn't done this since we were foals. Sorry, everybody. We have to cut this short. Next time, we'll talk more about the summits. Author's note. First things first. The summit order you see in the picture may or may not be the order Twi will experience. Come on, guys. We wouldn't spoil it that easily. As stated in the chapter, the summit order is different for each pony that undergoes it, and Twilight has no idea what the future holds for her. Secondly, this is going to be updated rather sporadically as I find time to work on it. The good news is that since these are meant to be short, less than 1,000 words per chapter, they don't take long to make once the muse does strike me. Also, since this is non-canon and fourth wall breaking to an extreme, my editing standards aren't as high for this story. I don't need to be all, everything must be perfect, like I am with the canon stories. Thus, once I start, the turnaround time on them should be rather fast. As stated in the description, I reserve the right to nullify anything here, as it is non-canon. But, if I do, I'll point it out. The canon stories are what truly set what is and isn't true in Rites. Also, characters' knowledge of the universe may be a bit loose here. Generally, I try to peg their knowledge as based on a certain part of the story, but again, it may be a bit fluid. This is the place for non-canon silliness, after all. Thanks go out to Zach for his help and advice in the approval process, plus all my awesome pre-readers. Pre-reader credits can be found in the author's notes of the Rites main story. Chapter 2. Ascension, Horn and Body. Hello, everybody! Twilight twirled a telescoping pointer rod in her magic, ready to lecture. Today, we're going to be talking about some of the summits. A chalkboard rolled into view, and on it were 4 drawings. There are 4 summits: horn growth, body growth, wings, and mane. The pointer stopped at each as she talked. The first was of 2 horns, one small and one long. The second was of 2 pony bodies, one small and one alicorn-sized in proportion. The third was of an appearing set of wings, while the fourth was of Celestia's ethereal mane. Horn and body growth happens slowly over time, growing like any body part would while going to adulthood. The summit for these are dominated when an alicorn ascendant finishes growing in these aspects. Twilight looked down at her body. Speaking as the shortest of the elements of harmony, I think I have a rather long way to go on the body growth one. Or maybe I'll just be short forever. But is short for an alicorn all that different from baseline normal? Celestia stepped into the room. I can help with that one. The wall behind her, including the chalkboard, faded to black, then quickly changed to show a blue sky with clouds. Embedded in the image were the silhouettes of 12 other alicorns, although few details could be gleaned other than the fact that they were alicorns. Twilight held her head with her hooves. How? I was using a chalkboard! How did you... Special ancient alicorn secret, Celestia winked. Anywhoof, you can see that there is quite a bit of size variance between the alicorns of the past. Some, like Lord Glacian, were quite large, even larger than I. Others weren't near as big. However, it is important to note that every one of them was still larger than what one would see in a regular pony. Perhaps some extreme examples of single-tribe draft ponies do exist that are near our size, such as General Stone, but these are extremely rare. Twilight coughed and straightened her mane. Yes, right. Well, there is one other thing. The horses in Saddle Arabia are unique and are all quite tall, but, like zebras, they are a separate subspecies from we ponies. Despite our similarities, we cannot breed with them, so our heights never equalized. My little Twilight. Thinking about breeding? Celestia smirked. Twilight squeaked and blushed bright red. The princess leaned down to her ear. Did that ambassador leave such an impression on you, my student? I could arrange for another visit, if you like. Had she been taller, Twilight could have passed for Big Macintosh, given how red her whole body was. Ah! No! Bad! Bad thoughts! Her hooves went up to cover her ears. La 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 la. Celestia smiled at the camera. We'll be back later to explain the others, everybody. Well, as you can see, this is a little short story the author made as separate to the main story. I'm going to be slipping these in here and there in good pausing spots among the main story. This, and also they have another collection which is of more canonical short stories I'll also be slipping in. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you again with the next real chapter next time. Bye everyone, have a pleasant time.